Hey, welcome back to Midas Letter Live. My guest this segment is Vahan Ajamian, and he is the Managing Director of Analyst Relations for MedMen, which just went public today on the CSE under the symbol MMEN. Vahan, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Vahan, you were 2 weeks ago, or you were an analyst with Beacon Securities.
Exactly. Just switched jerseys over the Lift conference last week. Pretty exciting.
Amazing the impact this industry is having on our industries generally. MedMen is probably one of the most anticipated IPOs of the year because of their presence in the U.S. market. And why don't you tell me what it is about the MedMen brand that makes people flock to their stores?
Sure. So our tagline is mainstreaming marijuana, right? So right now we're seeing an industry that's a very large industry that's migrating from the illegal market to the legal market, right? So one of the multi-million-dollar ad campaigns we just had is called Forget Stoner. So we're not out there appealing to the stoner market. We're trying to really mainstream marijuana. So you walk into the store, you're not going to see a big armed guy, security guard with a gun as soon as you walk in. You're not going to see weird psychedelic stuff on the walls and have a less than favorable experience with the bud tender. You walk in, it's nice, it's bright, it's sleek. You have customer service that are friendly, that are educated in the product. So we really want to appeal, and we are appealing not just to the stoner market, but to really mainstream. So the white-collar professionals, the soccer moms, people who are elderly and having trouble sleeping, they won't want to buy products from a guy in a corner in a Ziploc bag. They want to walk in and get full informed about the product. So I think when people walk into the MedMen stores, they have a really good experience. It keeps them coming back and generating a brand. I've
heard I haven't been to the MedMen store yet. I plan to go as my earliest opportunity.
Sure.
But I've heard them compared to Apple stores in the way that they're laid out and bright and ultra modern and very clean and fresh and well spaced and everything.
Yeah, we'll take that analogy, right?
Sure.
It's got good wood paneling. The staff is all wearing MedMen shirts. They're all very presentable and very knowledgeable. And then when you walk in, so there'll be a certain station here for dried flower, and there's an edible station and a vape station, and every 3 or 4 strains you'll have an iPad, speaking of Apple, where it'll tell you specifically what the strains are and what the potency is, THC, CBD, where it's made, what the pesticide, etc. content is, and who's verified that it doesn't have anything that's not allowed, and what it could be used for, whether you need help sleeping, whether you want something that give you more energy, less energy, what type of user it might kind of attract. So really give that information and try to have an overall positive experience for our customers.
Sure. The founding of the company happened about 8 years ago by 2 gentlemen, Adam Bierman and Andrew Maudlin, is it?
Correct.
Okay, so is the inspiration for the name MedMen, I'm just curious about this, is it from Mad Men, the wildly popular show?
No, it's actually, I think their names, you put them together, right? Bierman, Maudlin, and then they slightly changed it over time to becoming MedMen.
Right, it's a cool name.
Yeah.
I'm interested in knowing what drove them to go public in Canada. I mean, except for the obvious, it's federally prohibited in the United States, but we've seen John Bonner, I think it was, tabled legislation. Yeah. Chuck Schumer tabled legislation to move it towards federal legalization. And so it's interesting to me that they would prefer to go public in Canada sooner rather than wait for that federal ball to cross the net.
Sure. So the company started off having a few different funds. So I had a few venture funds. Fund 1, you raise money, you deploy it, and you open Fund 2, you raise money, you deploy it, and it got to a point where we're seeing the tailwinds in the industry, more and more states going online. More and more applications have to be in, more and more expansion has to be funded, and the CSE was essentially the best place to go public. So you could really tap into a wider variety of capital out there and start to move faster. Right. So that was the key components of why we decided to list on the CSE.
That's interesting. So they were able to look at their portfolio of assets and say, well, let's run those 3 and get rid of the rest, and away you go.
Well, exactly. So there's so much more happening in the U.S. that we want to get ready for, and rather than starting each fund one at a time, it's easier just to go public. And now you have a currency as well that you could use for M&A opportunities as they arise, right? But if you were to tell me 3 years ago that a U.S. cannabis company is going to be listing in Canadian Exchange, you think, what are you talking about, right? But here we are, as how fast the industry is moving.
Right. So what is the build-out plan in the States? There's how many stores now?
So we have 18 facilities, a few cultivation facilities in the States as well as stores.
Nevada, California, New York.
In New York, exactly. So if you look at the footprint we're in right now, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, New York, specifically Manhattan, right on Fifth Avenue. I mean, these are the 3 key locations I think we want to start with, right? This is where pop culture is created. This is where brands are created, and then backfill across the country, and then obviously exported internationally.
Sure.
But so now that we're public, we want to make sure that we can, execute on the footprint that we have, build out what we need, and obviously we're looking at other favorable states that are coming online. We see more and more coming online recreationally and medically that are attractive.
Sure. When do you think that federal deprohibition for recreational access as well as medical is likely to happen?
It's tough to pinpoint an exact date. I mean, I think the key point I take away is, even in Canada as well as the U.S., legalization isn't a date; it's a process, right? So California has been medically legal for well over 10 years. Just went recreationally legal January 1st this year. Nevada went July last year, so less than a year. We're seeing the dominoes are all falling one by the states, right? But on the federal level, there's a lot of momentum as well. We have a number of senators, Chuck Schumer, as you mentioned, putting in a bill to decriminalize marijuana. We do know that President Trump is working with Senator Cory Gardner in Colorado to present a bill that will entrench in law the state's rights ability to legalize medical and/or recreational cannabis. So we're seeing the positive momentum. And I think both nationally and at the state and local level. So what we want to do is we want to make sure, while we're in the land grab part of this phase of this industry, that we go out there and we get some really good assets. If and when that happens, they should be worth more. Yeah,
that makes perfect sense. So is there a plan to build stores in Canada if it goes legal here?
So we do have a partnership, a JV with Kronos Group.
Oh, great.
So we will be working with them. We have access to their cultivation and open up stores on a JV basis, 50-50 in the provinces that will allow it. So we're probably looking more at the western provinces, BC, Alberta for now, and we'll see where it goes in other provinces in the future.
Sure. Okay, so then in terms of the revenue build, what is the current state of financials today in terms of quarterly sales and gross margins, et cetera?
So we'll be reporting Q1 very shortly, and then obviously Q2. But what I would say is, we expect that revenue will pick up over the course of this year and into next year, right? California went recreationally legal January 1st, but it's not like all stores that immediately turned on. You have to wait for each municipality to grant your licenses. So momentum has been building with our stores, lineups have been building, and we're getting more and more stores open. So we should see good momentum heading into Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4, as well as our cultivation facilities. So we just opened the one in Reno. It's called Mustang in Nevada. So that's going to be supplying our stores as well as some others. So phase 1 is done. Plants are in the ground. And then in California, we just broke ground about two weeks or so ago on the cultivation facility there. So we'll be getting both revenue from the retail stores and from the cultivation.
How big is the cultivation facility in California?
It's still being under construction. So there'll be a phase 1, and then as needed, we'll expand to subsequent
So is
phases.
the company going to issue any specific guidance in terms of financials?
Not that I know of currently. I mean, we're in a exponential growth phase.
Early days, sure.
A lot of moving parts in different states and different municipalities. So.
Is there a U.S. symbol for the company?
We are working on that, I believe, but nothing. Right now, it's just on the CSE.
Right. Do you anticipate? I mean, obviously, they started off as with these funds, and then sort of cherry picked the assets to become operators and come up with this great idea. Do you foresee? I mean, can we deduce from this development safely that even large capital pools in the United States are now comfortable investing in cannabis despite the federal prohibition, and even comfortable crossing borders with their capital without fear of Jeff Sessions, pulling some kind of a confiscation move?
Sure, I think so. We went out looking to raise about $50 million US, and we ended up closing on more than double that, 110, right? So we had lots of really large investors, people you would know, that took meetings, that put in orders. And I think they see where the industry is going, right? So we've had a couple of years now in Canada where there's 30 or 40 odd Canadian listed companies. Right now, everybody focuses on the big five, right? The big five are getting the lion's share of revenue, market share, investor dollars, media attention. I think that's where we're going in the United States.
Right.
A year from now, there'll probably be a big five in the U.S. We are solidly number one right now, and our intention is, especially now that we're public, to maintain number one.
Sure.
And I think this is the type of industry where it's not necessarily one winner take all, but it's few winners take most. And our intention is to cement our status as the number one player.
You bet. All right, well, that's a great introductory interview. We're going to leave it there for now. We'll come back to in a quarter's time and see how the company's doing. Thanks so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.